Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we will discuss different deployment options available for your AWS cloud resources with respective pros and cons. If you are preparing for AWS CSOP or DevOps professional exam, or even if you want to understand what deployment option will be ideal for your use case, then you are at the right place. Before I start, I would like to request you, if you are new to our channel or haven't subscribed yet, then please subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to get notification for any new video. Our goal is to help everyone with premium content without any paid subscription. Your support will motivate us. Without any further delay, let's get started. We will start with in-place deployment. An in-place deployment strategy updates the application version without replacing any infrastructure components. In an in-place deployment, the previous version of the application on each computer resource is stopped first, then latest application is installed, and then the new version of the application is started for validation. Now let's review the total concept using a diagram. Let's say this is your application version 1, you have 4 EC2 instances. As part of next step, first all your 4 EC2 instances will be stopped. You won't be able to access your application, there will be application downtime. After that, all the 4 EC2 instances will be updated with the new version of the application. If you observe application version 2, then your application will be restarted and your user will be able to access. Now between stage 0 and stage 2, there will be a time period where your application will not be available to users. Now let's try to understand the pros and cons. To start with pros, minimum infrastructure cost, as you are not adding any additional infrastructure. You are using the existing infrastructure. That is why there will be no additional infrastructure cost. Second, minimum overhead. As you are not creating any new infrastructure, there will be minimum overhead. And third, this deployment process is very fast. We will review other deployment options and you will see this option is very fast. Coming back to all the cons, as there will be a brief outage of your application, it is not suitable for any critical app. If your application cannot sustain downtime, then this strategy is not for you. As I mentioned, there will be a brief application downtime, and from the diagram you can understand, let's say after you upgraded your application version, you have identified there is a bug and you have to roll it back. Since all the EC2 instances or infrastructure with new application version, it is difficult to roll back to previous version. Maybe you have to again undeploy the code and redeploy the previous version of the artifacts. Next, rolling deployment. Now, unlike in-place deployment, in rolling deployment, all the applications will not be stopped at a time. If you see at stage 0, all the 4 EC2 instances was with application version 1. In stage 1, you can configure the batch size. You can configure either 25% or 50% of your infrastructure. In this diagram, we have considered 50%. That is why 2 instances out of 4 are first upgraded with the new application version, while other 2 instances are running with older application. So at one point of time, you will have both the application versions running simultaneously. Then in next stage, all the 4 EC2 instances will be upgraded to application version 2. If we compare the rolling deployment with in-place, in in-place there was a brief downtime, but in rolling deployment, there will be no application downtime. However, the application will not be available with its full capacity. Now let's review the pros and cons. Again, minimum infrastructure cost, as we are not adding any additional infrastructure. Since you are not creating any new infrastructure, there will be minimum overhead of creating new resources or decommissioning your existing resources. Again, this is faster deployment process, but it will be slower than in place. In place deployment, you are doing all at a go. In rolling, you are doing with different batch based on the size you are taking. If you are taking 50%, then there will be 3 stages. If you are taking 25% at a time, then there will be more number of stages. Coming back to cons, environment isolation is not there. You can see that two different application versions are running simultaneously. Now, if both the application has some data structure changes or have some significant amount of changes, then you can end up having inconsistency of data. Again, that is depending on the delta between version A and version B, or version 1 and version 2. As we discussed, it may create data consistency issue. And second, like in place deployment, it will be difficult to roll back to previous versions because you are already having half or a percentage of the infrastructure that is deployed with application version 2. After deployment, if you found that version 2 is faulty, then you have to roll back to previous version, and for that again you have to undeploy and redeploy the previous artifacts. Moving to rolling deployment with additional batches. Now, unlike the previous deployment strategy, where we saw that we are using the existing infrastructure and depending on the batch size, we are upgrading. Now, as the name suggests, with additional batches, first in stage 1, if you have configured with 50% batch size, it will add 2 new instances where the new application versions will be installed. Now your existing application is still running with full capacity with 4 EC2 instances. You are adding additional instances to accommodate the new incoming version. In second stage, again, all the 4 applications will be upgraded to new version, whereas you will have 2 EC2 instances that is idle or with the older version of the application. Again, in stage 3 also, your application will be available with full capacity but with new version. And at the end, all the previous application versions will be terminated or the infrastructure will be decommissioned. Now you can understand that the difference between rolling deployment and rolling with additional batches, here you are adding additional infrastructure to accommodate the new application version or the incoming application version. Moving to pros and cons, application will be available with full capacity. And cons, again there will be no application isolation between old and new version. Last but not least, it would be costly. Since you are adding additional infrastructure, then obviously this will incur some infrastructure cost compared to the previous 3. If you are more cost concerned, then obviously you should think about other deployment options. Moving to the next deployment option, blue-green deployment option. Under blue-green deployment option, we consider the existing environment as a blue environment. Let's assume this is our application version 1, which is blue environment. Now in blue-green deployment strategy, we create 2 separate but identical environments. One environment with existing application and the second environment with new version of the application. So your existing application is called blue environment and the environment with the new version is called the green environment. Now in next stage, both the application version will run parallel, but your existing application or the blue will run with production traffic, whereas test your green application with the test traffic. Now when all the testing is done and if you see that the green version is working fine without any flaw, then as part of next step, you will do a DNS switch and you will direct all your production traffic to the green environment, and then you can discard the blue environment or the old region. Let's say you have only update to the EC2 instances or in application code. If you do not have update in the database, in that case, you can still point to the old database. But if you have changes in the database also, in that case, you will create an exact replica of the current system and you will test with non-production traffic. Moving to pros and cons, since there is no downtime, this is ideal for critical workload with zero downtime. And now since you are maintaining two versions and you have dedicated traffic for production and test traffic, if you find that your green environment is faulty, then you will not switch your application traffic from blue to green. In that case, it's very easy to roll back. If your new environment is not working properly, you will simply not put any production traffic on that new environment and there will be no question of any rollback. Coming back to cons, it is slow deployment considering other deployment methodology, and there is a cost implication since you are creating a replica or an additional environment of your existing environment. So please remember, blue-green deployment will be slower than the traditional all strategies and it has a cost implication. Now there is another one deployment called Canary deployment. For Canary deployment, it is very identical with blue-green deployment, and there is a confusion that most of the time there are arguments going on that they are same and all. I'll not go to that argument. I'll try to explain the difference between a Canary and the blue-green here. If you remember in blue-green deployment, your blue region or the old version of the application was holding all the production traffic, whereas your green environment having the test traffic. But for Canary deployment, as the name suggests, we'll send a small amount of traffic, maybe 5% or 10% of the production traffic to the green environment. Now you can understand the main difference is for blue-green deployment, your green environment was tested with test traffic, but in Canary, it is with actual production traffic, but with a small subset. Now, once you find that your green environment is working absolutely perfect, there is no flaw, then what you will do, you will perform a DNS switch and you will cut the traffic from this old environment and all your traffic will be navigated to your green environment. And the diagram will look like this. There is no traffic to the old environment and all traffic will come to production environment region, or your green environment will be your new production region. Now let me repeat again. For Canary deployment, you are testing with actual production traffic but with a small subset. Compared to blue-green deployment, you are testing the new environment with a test traffic. This is the main difference between Canary and blue-green. Coming back to pros and cons, again, the same pros and cons what was there for blue-green whole goods. Only additional pros, application is tested with live production traffic. It is not tested with test traffic. But apart from those, pros and cons all are same as compared to blue-green deployment. Now we came to a conclusion about today's topic. I hope I was able to clarify all your doubts. If you have any question regarding today's topic, please post your question as comment to this video. We will answer at earliest. Before we conclude today, I would like to request you please subscribe our channel and please click on the bell icon to get notification for new topics. If you want me to cover any topics, please provide your request as a comment on this video. If you appreciate our effort, please like this video. It will definitely motivate us. At the end, thank you. Please take care and stay safe.